it's a pleasure to be here. Thank you so much to everyone involved in this. Um, I'm excited. I think this is going to be a lot of fun. So I don't have a presentation. I'm just going to speak. So I don't know if I'll be on cam or if I just start talking. But basically, what I want to do is kind of follow up what the previous speaker talked about, and it was really well timed because what Rufa shared, is the concrete foundation that every entrepreneur should follow as far as like figuring out what you're good at. Spend time doing that. You may not know right away. It may take a while to figure out what you're good at, but once you figure out what you're good at, then you just lean into it. You start meeting people and networking and becoming an expert in your field. You start attending things and reading things and meeting with things that allow you to become just really well versed in whatever it is that you want to do your business about. And once you do that, then you're able to really start growing and scaling your business. And that's something I'll talk about today, about how I grew a business, and I'll kind of follow the model of storytelling. And so maybe some of you are familiar with the concept of data storytelling or storytelling with data. If you're familiar with the concept, if you've taken a course or a class or listened to a speaker talk about data storytelling, just drop a 1 in the comments, just so we can kind of see how many of you have heard of that concept. It's relatively new, but the idea speaks for itself, right? The idea of storytelling using data. And so I'm going to tell you about my entrepreneurial journey for one of the companies that I've set up here in the Philippines, and how it's very data driven, and how when you start applying your expertise to an area where you want to be able to turn into a business, that you want to be very data driven. Then when you look at data and you use data in your decision making, it should mitigate a lot of the risks and limit some of the mistakes you're going to make. But on the flip side, you're going to still make mistakes. And I think every entrepreneur should always remind young entrepreneurs that you're going to fail. Nobody gets it right the first time. And you have to learn from your failures and do better. And this is what separates the ones that are still going 5, 10 years down the road and the ones that stop trying to be an entrepreneur, is that they learn from their mistakes. So my story starts like this. So basically, I spent most of my career working for a bank in the US called Wells Fargo. It's one of the biggest banks in the US. And at Wells Fargo, I got there by accident. So I actually have a master's degree in education. I'm supposed to be a teacher. I actually taught for a couple years in a school in California after I finished college. And unfortunately, the school went bankrupt. So I had to find a job. And Wells Fargo was hiring for customer service. So call center job, like there's so many call center jobs here in the Philippines. That's where I started my career. And I had a skill that made me stand out really quickly. Even though I was one of thousands of call center agents, I was like the one who knew how to use a tool called Microsoft Excel the best. I had just kind of learned it on my own during college and enjoyed it because I'm just kind of a numbers guy. I like crunchy numbers. Even though I'm an educator by trade, I'm really good at managing data, about trying to understand how data talks to people and how you can use it in your decision to make better choices for your company. That's what I found I had a skill, all because I knew Excel. And as soon as I was able to start using that skill, it kind of broadened. I was able to get involved in more projects and take up more responsibilities. I got several promotions. 15 years later, I had a really great career for Wells Fargo. I was like one of the top analysts in the bank when it comes to understanding a business that you might be familiar with called remittances or money transfers. When OFWs go overseas to work, or Filipinos migrate overseas, they remit money back home a lot of times, right? So I was one of the top experts in the country on how to gather data and use data to help predict remittance patterns. And so long story short, I had this great career. But towards the end of my time at Wells Fargo, I had a life-changing event. An opportunity presented itself. I was asked to come over to the Philippines to help set up an outsourcing team, a team of Filipinos that the US Wells Fargo wanted to hire to help do some analytics reporting, some management reporting. So I came over here and did some training, and I realized, you know what? There's not a lot of experts in analytics here in the Philippines. This is back in 2012. When I first came here in 2012 and started talking about analytics, people would give me like the deer in the headlights look. They'd be like, what's that? I talk about data and they go, well, what do I need data for? And I started realizing that I had this great opportunity. I could come to the Philippines and train people to be analysts like I was at Wells Fargo. So I got here. I quit my job. I moved my family across the ocean and set up shop in Makati back in 2012. And my first business was an epic failure. That's right. My first business, after 15 years of being a professional, of having a master's degree, I still failed the first time. I failed because I tried to do too much myself. I didn't know I could delegate on what I should delegate. I didn't hire the right people. I made bad decisions as far as business partners. And after my first year in the Philippines, I had to close that business down. But I launched a second one. And I learned from what I went wrong in the first company. The first thing I did was hire a couple of assistants, virtual assistants, people that can work from home. So I didn't have to sink money into an office space. Eventually, I set up an office, but it wasn't the first thing I did. I hired a couple people that were Filipinos that were working from home predominantly, or occasionally we would work at a Starbucks. We'd meet up like at MOA or Mega Mall or somewhere around Manila and do a meeting at Starbucks. But basically, we were able to grow the business. We made it a plan that with that business, we were going to set up a training company to train the call centers, the BPOs here in the Philippines, how to do better analytics, how to be able to do things like build a business dashboard, how to do data visualization, how to really start, becoming more proficient with the use of data in decision making. And it was the right place, right person, right time scenario, which is always great when you want to set up a business. That won't always be the case, but we're in the right place and you have the right solution at the right time. When opportunities come your way, you grab them. And that's what I did. So my goal was simple. I wanted to have the biggest name brand in analytics in the Philippines. I wanted to be the most well-known, most influential analytics trainer in the Philippines. So I set out to do that. It took a couple years, but we got there. So now I want to actually talk to you about analytics and data storytelling as it relates to being an entrepreneur. So I'm going to share with you at this point, since I gave you kind of my story, and thank you for putting up with that. I know it was a little bit long and I talk fast, so I appreciate that those of you that can keep up. At the Q&A section at the end, feel free to ask me questions, and I'm easy to find online if you want to ever, after this conference today, if you want to go out and network with me on LinkedIn or find our website, you can. But basically, that's my story. And when I got into teaching analytics, I actually taught it here in a couple of schools in the Philippines. I've given lectures. I've taught corporate trainings and public trainings. I've literally trained over 10,000 Filipinos in the last 12 years, 10 to 12 years on analytics. And so as I did that, I realized that I had a superpower. And I didn't know what it was at first, but eventually it became clear my superpower is telling stories using data. Driving decision-making through data allows people that are in charge to make the right choice more often, to make better choices quicker, and to be able to identify risks and mitigate them, and identify opportunities and go after them when you're more data-driven. Now, as an entrepreneur, you always want to have an eye on your data. And your data storytelling skills, knowing your data, comes from this first tip I'll share with you. You have to know your audience. Now, this isn't just data storytelling, this is business. And the previous speaker, Rufa, talked about this a bit, that you have to kind of have a solution to a problem. You have to listen to what people need, what they're missing out on, what they don't have, what they're craving, and you offer that to them. That's really where most successful businesses come. And people may not even know they need it. Like when I first came here in the Philippines back in 2012, people didn't know they would be doing data science. They didn't know that the world of big data. They didn't understand artificial intelligence was only a few years away. The shift from when you were kids to where you're at now as you're in college, think about that. I mean, we've come so far so quickly with technology, and it's all data driven. When you think about in your personal life, what are the most important data points that you come across? How many Facebook friends you have? How many Instagram views you got? How many people subscribe to YouTube channel? How many views did your TikTok video get? We're very data-driven people. We don't even know it, right? So apply that to business. So let's get back to these 7 tips. So step number 1, know your audience. Who are you trying to do the business for? You got to know everything about them, their demographics, their geographics. You got to know where they spend their time and how they spend their money. You want to understand how they're going to purchase from you, how you're going to supply things to them, how you're going to deliver your service. That's all understanding the audience. And it evolves. It doesn't stay the same. Companies that evolve survive. Companies that don't fail. Probably when you were kids, there were several different companies that made phones, right? But once smartphones came around and the iPhone came out, it changed everything. And now pretty much most people either have an Android or a Apple phone, right? There's a Samsung or a one built by Apple. You have a few companies that dominate the market. The ones that were around before, though, are all gone. They didn't adapt fast enough. They didn't embrace technology. They didn't know what their audience craved. So when I came to the Philippines, I knew my audience. Call center managers, call center trainers, team leads, people that have to prepare reports and share information to upper management so they can make decisions. So I knew my audience when I first started doing my analytics training company here in the Philippines. I knew everything about them because I'd been a call center agent. I knew what it was like to be in a call center. I knew how in a call center you have all these data points you have to manage. And I also knew that you have to be able to deliver information. So if your end audience is actually decision makers, then what are the things they need to know to make decisions? How do you funnel all these massive amounts of data into the things they need? Think about that for your business idea. You've all got one, right? So everyone here on this call either started a business, or maybe you want to start a business, or someday soon you're going to start a business. But what is the audience you're going to serve? How big is it? Where do they live? How do they shop? What are the things they're going to want, not just now, but in 2 or 3 years? Think about your audience. Number 2, consider time constraints. How much time do you have to do this? How urgent is it? Do people need this right now? Is it something that they can choose to kind of get when they need it? An entrepreneur who went out and bought a bunch of surgical masks, back in January of 2020, got really rich, right? Entrepreneurship is usually about being in the right place at the right time when it comes to success. So you want to make sure that you consider your time constraints. How much time do you want to sink into your business before you realize maybe it's not the right business? I should shift my model. How much time and energy do you try to get in front of people? How much of their time do you need? Can they make a quick decision when they buy your stuff, or do they need to kind of think it through? People generally need to think it through when they buy property, when they buy a car, when they buy something that's a big purchase. But we also are pretty good at just clicking, buy online for a lot of stuff too. So think about the time constraints that go into your business and gather the data around that. So you want to know how big your audience is, and you want to know how they shop, and you want to know how much time you have in front of them. How much time do they take to make decisions? How much time before what you offer them becomes dated? How often do you have to update it? These are time constraints that you want to think about as an entrepreneur. Always be thinking about where your business is going. Next, you want to prepare your data, right? You want to have some kind of reporting tool. You want to use some kind of spreadsheet. You want to do something where you're gathering data and looking at it. The cool thing about running a business today is that most of our businesses run a large percentage of what we do online. And every single social media platform provides you free data when it comes to having a business page. If you have a business page on Facebook, you can see demographically where your viewers are coming from. You can see which posts get the most likes and go the most viral. You can see all these insights. It's free, and you have it right there. So when you're able to use social media and online marketing to really get your business out there, make sure you're capturing that data. Make sure you're having a way to prepare your data so you can analyze it. I did that with what I was doing. So we fine-tuned the kind of trainings we did. We fine-tuned when and where we offered trainings. We trial and error for some part, but most of it was based off of research that I was able to do to prepare the data. The next thing is that when you're doing a data story or growing a business, you want to make sure that you choose the right visuals. People learn visually. People buy visually. We want to see it. We believe it. We want to see it before we buy it. We want to kind of get a sense of what we're getting ourselves into, whether we're launching a business or buying a pair of shoes online. So visuals are important. And right now, when it comes to telling stories with data, I teach people all the time to not use a lot of charts and graphs and data things, but do more things that people can relate to. Do more things that are easier to understand, and use your data to support that. For example, if you look at any news article right now, if you just kind of pull up any newspaper online or look at even an old-fashioned paper, you'll see a bunch of data all across the page. But most of it's not in pie charts and graphs. You can see how the stock market's doing. You can see how the recent election results. You can see how much gas costs, all this stuff, but it's all in narrative format. It's all being talked about as a story. So when you find the right visuals to share your story, whether it be a picture, an image, a pie chart, whatever it may be, then you can prepare your story better. Same thing for your business. How are you going to explain what you do to your investors, to your customers, to your employees? How are you going to give them insight into what you're doing? Well, you're going to have to use a lot of visuals to do that. You're going to have to be able to create some pie charts in Excel. You're going to have to be, able to use Canva to create something. You want to be able to do short videos. If you don't want to do this yourself, you can always delegate those things to somebody. You can outsource those things, but you want to make sure you have great visuals when you're doing data storytelling. Then you want to deliver key insights. You want to make sure that the insights that you're giving people allow them to take action. You want to give people not everything, but just what they need to know. One of the greatest pieces of advice I ever got from a mentor, and a former boss of mine, who told me, you know what, Dan, you do great analysis. You know all this stuff, but I don't have time to understand it all, let alone read everything. Give me the 3 bullet points. That's all I want. Tell me the 3 things I need to know today to make a better decision in my business. So that's what you got to get good at. You got to deliver key insights to your customers, to your investors, to your employees, whoever you're trying to share your story with. Number 6, you want to demonstrate the big takeaway. What do they get from doing business with you? What did I get out of doing my business? What did my customers get? The big takeaway for my company here in the Philippines that I talked about, the analytics training, the big takeaway for people is that they're now better suited to go out there and tackle analytics. They have a better idea of the tools and the trends and the tips they needed to be more effective at doing things like data storytelling in their business. You need to know the same. What is the big takeaway that people get from interacting with you? What's the big takeaway for people that invest in you? What is the big takeaway for people that work for you? And what is the big takeaway people are going to buy from you? It's not always what it seems. So you want to think about that. What is that one big thing that each group of people that you interact with as an entrepreneur is going to walk away being better because you were the one that solved that problem or gave them that opportunity or helped them figure out how to do something they couldn't do on their own? Last, you want to narrate the story, right? So tip number 7, you want to narrate your story. You have to be good at doing what I'm doing right now. You got to be the salesperson of your business. And if you're not, if you're introverted, if you don't like doing this kind of stuff, do you find a partner who does? Because the business needs it, right? We live in a relationship-based world. Facts are great, and you need data, and you need that to back you up when people ask questions so that you sound like you've done your research and you're intelligent. But bottom line, people are going to buy from you because they like you and they trust you. So you have to be in front of a group of people and you have to tell them what you do, whether it be online or in a classroom or in front of a conference room or on a stage at a seminar. You need to be able to talk to people and tell them what you do, why what you do is important, how it benefits them, and why they should choose you over anybody else to provide that service, to provide that product, to be able to do that thing that you're going to sell in your business. So if you do that, you're narrating a story to them. You're not just telling them, hey, buy this because it's this or this or this. You're not just giving them data points alone. You're not just telling them like reasons why you think it's better. You're doing it data driven. You're talking to people you're supposed to be talking to because you know your audience. You know the sense of urgency and how they go about making decisions so you meet their time constraints. You make sure you have all your data organized to validate what you think, so that you actually know what's going to work in your business and what may not. And when it doesn't work, you can make changes. You want to make sure you have a lot of good visuals, videos, graphics, things that catch people's attention. We live in an image-driven society. You want to make sure you're delivering key insights to stakeholders, whether they be employees, whether they be investors, whether they be customers. You want to make sure you have that big takeaway, and then you want to narrate the story. That's it. That's data storytelling. That's how you do it with data to talk about your business. And as an entrepreneur, your job now is to go out there and figure out what your data story is, get the data you need, organize it in a way that when you talk about your business, people feel like they want to work with you, buy from you, or partner with you because they trust you and they like you. those are my tips for today. I hope that helped. I look forward to answering any questions that come up later on in the Q&A.